It's all fun and games until... Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life. It's all fun and games until you add a theory to it. So today we're going to be talking about game theory. And it's a very interesting topic and that connects really well with some of the pieces of the puzzle that we already discussed, but also with many other pieces that we will discuss in the future. So what is game theory? Well, like the name says, it's just a theory about games. So games are, usually playful interactions between people. And the first thing that the game theory does is classify games in different types, right? So, for instance, you could say that you can have games that are symmetrical or asymmetrical, right? So that different players have different rules. Some board games, for instance, they do have, you take different roles and the rules for each player are different. Then another way you could classify them is a zero-sum game, or it's a non-zero-sum game. So it's either I win, you lose, right? Or is it a possibility for both of us win or both of us losing? Also, you have games that are based on chance, right? Like throwing the dice, and or could be just pure strategic. There's games where you actually share all the information. For instance, you could think about chess. So you know what's going on. Both players see the same thing at the same time. Or where you can hide some information, like most of the card games, right? Where you know something that the other player does not. There are some games that you play simultaneously, like rock, paper, scissors, right? At the same time. Or you take turns. So it's an alternate game. What else? Well, you could have games that are only one instance or that are repeated instances. So you could think about sports. So you can have a game or you could have a championship. So you could take different strategies based on where you are in the whole championship, right? Not just on your current game. Maybe you should save energy for later or things like that. So as you can see, there's many different variables that define what a game is. Today in particular, we're going to be talking about one. It's not really a game, but it follows this idea of choosing strategies. And it's called the prisoner's dilemma. You probably heard about it. You probably know about it. If you do, you can skip the next part because I'm going to explain one version. Different people have explained it in different ways. But the main idea is that, you have two partners in crime. Let's call them Alice and Bob. So Alice and Bob just committed a crime and they were caught by the police. And they are taken to separate rooms. Now, independently, they are made by the police the same proposition. They say, okay, you know what? We have enough evidence to have you in jail for at least 1 year, right? But if you, if you give us some evidence against the other partner, then we can come to an agreement that you could skip prison. What will happen with the other person? Well, the other person will probably get 20 years instead of one year, right? So you can betray the other person, you can snitch on them, and you will go free. Now, the law requires us to tell us that if they do the same thing to you, you are probably both going to spend 5 years in prison. So you have these different possibilities, right? So you both keep silent and you just spend 1 year in prison, or you can, betray the other one, and then you have different outcomes depending on if the other person remains silent. Well, then you would go free. But if the other person does the same thing that you're doing, so you're both going to spend 5 years. So why is this so interesting? It's because it allows us to think about what is the best strategy. And obviously, the best outcome possible is both people remaining silent. That would be what we call an optimal strategy. So if both people don't tell anything, the sum of the sentences is just 2 years, 1 year each, which is the best outcome of all the possible ones. Now, you have the temptation to say, well, but if they're choosing that strategy, then, I should betray them so I can go free. I don't spend any years. Now, that solution overall is worse because if you add both sentences, it's 0 plus 20. So it's 20 years instead of 2 years. But also there's risk that the other person will think the same way, and they both betray each other, and then you will both spend 5 years each, so that makes a total of 10 years of sentencing, And there's a lot of debate. There's people who actually run simulations about, okay, what is the best strategy in different, with different approaches. But there's this genius, another of the ones that we talk about, that is called John Forbes Nash Jr. He was a mathematician, and he explained it this way. He explained, well, you know what? If both persons are rational, are thinking, they will both choose to betray and risk spending 5 years in prison, even though the best strategy is, or the optimal strategy is, not to betray. And that is called, in his honor, is called the Nash equilibrium. So there's this definition kind of saying is your best strategy if you ignore what the other player would do. But the way I understand it the best is, I call it the no regrets strategy. What do I mean by that? So if the person decides to remain silent, not betraying the other, they could eventually, just get just 1 year. But that really depends on the decision of the other person. If the other person decides to betray you, then when you're in jail for 20 years, you would be regretting the decision that you made. Right? Why did I trust in the other person? So, on the other hand, if you decide to betray, well, you know that you will get 5 years. Right? It's kind of your baseline. Yeah, I'm getting 5 years. And at least I'm not getting 20 years. Well, now I can't remember if I said 20 years or 10 years. Well, whatever, the hardest sentence. So, and if the other person decides to remain silent, well, you go free. Tough luck for the other person, right? You wouldn't regret your decision. So that's why the Nash equilibrium is a suboptimal equilibrium, in which everybody makes their decision independent on what the other person would do, trying to just to minimize the damage instead of maximize an eventual, optimal outcome. So, that is Nash equilibrium. Now, if you think about it, there's some correlation or some connection with the idea of stable or unstable equilibrium. So in both cases, in the optimal solution, you have equilibrium, right? In the sense that you could have both people making the same decision and getting the best. But it's an unstable equilibrium. If you remember talking about this bowl where you put the ball on top, that will constantly, you could put it in equilibrium, but it will constantly fall down because, it tries to go to a lower energy point. Now, the Nash equilibrium, this suboptimal in the case of the prisoner's dilemma, is kind of the ball up, right? So if you put it here, the ball inside, and it will fall back to the bottom of that one. So it's stable. And that is the reason why, people end up making that decision. They fear that if they go to the top, to the 1-on-1, the other one will choose to betray, and they will go way back to the bottom. So again, this idea of stable and unstable equilibrium. And why is this just about a game? It's about just prisoners? It's about the police? And, well, not really. The thing is that we find this same process, the same dynamics in many, many things that we do during life. So I would put an example. Let's think about two countries, that are polluting a river. Now we are in the Provo River Delta. Back there, I don't know which mountain you're seeing. I think that's Mount Timpanogos, if I see it correctly in the screen. So I think two countries that share a river. And, they are both polluting the river. So that hurts both of them. So they might come to an agreement and say, hey guys, this is not good. Let's just not pollute the river anymore. Now, what is the best optimal solution is that both will comply with the agreement. But, one of the countries would be tempted to say, well, whatever, I will still be polluting. That would mean that my products will be cheaper because I can just dispose of the contamination from factories, whatever. I don't have to add that cleaning process, so I can compete better. I can sell things and I will benefit my own people. So if they start doing that, obviously they would benefit immediately, but it would be really dumb for the other country to say, oh, I will just, keep my part because the river is polluted. So they will fall back to do what they were doing before. It's very, very difficult to live this type of equilibrium, this type of Nash equilibrium, in which you don't want to be the I don't know the expression in English, but there's a saying, I can't remember it, but you don't want to be the last one, right? So many years ago, I was trying to explain these principles. I created this kind of game, and the way it worked, you had, a bunch of people, and everybody will have, let's say, 7 coins. And each one will have its turn, and they could do one of two things with their coin. So they had to decide if they wanted to put the coin into in a central place that was called the common good, or if there was something in the common good, they could decide to take something from the common good. Right? It was their choice. At the beginning, the common good was empty, so you go around and people start putting coins, and the way the incentive was that it was not a zero-sum game, because whatever you put in the common good would count for you. But it will also count for everybody else. Right? So let's say that you have 5 coins in the common good, and you had 3 on your own. Well, your total points were 8. Right? Because you have the 5 shared by everybody plus your 3. So the game always starts the same way, and I did this with several people in different places. So everybody kind of feels like, okay, I'm going to be contributing to the common good. And the optimal solution would be if everybody would put all their coins in the common good, because now you multiply all the coins by the number of people. So the whole group, if you consider the whole group, you benefit by putting all your money in the common good. Now, what is the problem? The problem is that at some point somebody say, you know what? Well, I'd be even better if I just take one coin from the common good, right? It wouldn't hurt me, and I will be winning the game. But what happens immediately is that everybody start taking, and it accelerates until the common good is empty, and everybody keeps their coins and they won't share anything anymore. Every time it happened the same thing, and I played this, in religious groups. I played it with companies, so it always happened the same. It's kind of a natural process. Does that mean that we cannot cooperate? Does that mean that there's no way that we can find the optimal solution? Well, not really. But we need to add one other dimension to the problem. So now let's go back to the prisoner's dilemma, and let's say that Alice and Bob are married, and they've been married for 20 years, and they have children, and and grandchildren, and they share their whole life. And is it likely that they're going to betray each other just for 1 year in jail, or is there something stronger than that, desire of getting away with the best that you can? So are they willing to sacrifice anything? It's likely that they would remain silent, right? And they will take 1 year each. But that's because they replace, or they put on top of that unstable equilibrium, they put something very stable. That there's an incentive for them to be there. It's, in this case, we can connect this with the idea of attractors. Remember, we were talking about Lorentz attractors and the theory of chaos. Well, now we're connecting with the theory about games. So this idea of attractor, having something that is pulling you into it, that is stronger than what is repelling to you. So that is the way that you can overcome Nash equilibriums and find optimal solutions. You just need to add another dimension to the problem. So this could be love, this could be principles, this could be values, including religious beliefs of believing that what God expects from you. So again, we were talking about non-regrets. And if your values and your principles are strong enough, even if you get betrayed, you will have no regrets for the decision that you made. So again, you're overcoming that suboptimal equilibrium by living your principles. And, let's talk about economic systems. Because this idea of the common good, you could immediately think, that's what socialism is about, right? So we all share everything, so everybody owns, which is not exactly true in socialism. But, you could argue that, if everybody owns everything and, we have that common good, yes and no. So let's think about where that would work. We talk about Alice and Bob, but let's expand it a little more to a family. In a family, you have a common good, right? You suffer together, you know each other, you help each other, you know your weaknesses and your strength, and you try to help. And if you lose your job, then your children will help you, and if they lose a job, so in sickness, there's all this small community where everybody helps each other, sacrificing their own interest, because there's this proximity to the problem. Yet there's this knowledge about the people you're interacting with. So you could say that in a family, the socialist approach, I hate to do this, but we could say that it works, right? We could have things in common. Now, when communities are very homogeneous, And I put as an example, some of the fishing towns in Norway. They really depend on each other. They know each other. They know that bad winter would kill everybody. So it's not about taking advantage, but you can still live that communal type of life where there's something stronger than this pushing from the optimal solution. But that doesn't scale. Because when you have a country, a bigger country, a more diverse country, where you're more removed from the other people, you immediately fall into this problem. So let's say that people that propose United States to become socialist. Well, that will never happen. And never a big country can succeed at that. Why? Because love of the country is not really a thing. You might believe that you love your country. I mean, I did believe that I loved my country when I moved here and I had to, abandon. I felt it really like a divorce, like I was feeling like I was giving a lot for my country, and the country didn't care about me at all. Then I realized that the country was just the people, and the people didn't care. And so that kind of made me make the decision to move to another country with different principles, different values, especially hoping for my children to find more opportunities. But again, if you think about it, the countries that started with socialism started with this ideal about, we're going to share everything, everybody will own everything. But eventually somebody will realize that, I don't need to work that hard. Right? And it's just a perception. And we talk about this in some of the other pieces of the puzzle some months ago. When you perceive things differently when they're yours and when they're somebody else's, right? You're seeing different value. So this applies as well. You value your work more than somebody else's. So you're always feeling like you deserve more. And that kills socialism immediately. Because if you believe that your neighbor is not really making the effort and the other neighbor as well, you will stop. But they are feeling the same thing. So the only way that you can maintain now that unstable equilibrium with all the love for the country or for the system is gone is by first replacing by propaganda, right? And you try to convince people and brainwash them, and this, and you could go all the way, North Korea, or you could start using force, right? And you think about Venezuela, right? So you can't disagree, you can't oppose to the government, you be killed, you disappear. So eventually, what you end up having is fear. And like we talked the last time, so fear is pushing constantly, right? And eventually it fails because you can't keep a lot of people in fear for too long. Eventually something will happen. So this opens the door to another piece of the puzzle. In a certain way, a family and a country of 300 million people are similar, but in other ways are different. So what does scale? What doesn't scale? Well, that's something for, a future piece of the puzzle. But, for now, I just want to invite you to think about it. If I can give you a homework, I would invite you to read a little about game theory and see how it applies to things that you're facing every day, right? See if there's any way that you can find path to optimal solutions, right? Find these other dimensions. Can you propagate values? Can you live values that other people will want to imitate and make everybody better? That's one of the things now that we talk about socialism. Well, what capitalism gives you is freedom. So yeah, of course you go after the rewards, and in that sense you could say that you're selfish. But your things are your things. You earned them. You didn't steal them, you just earned them. It's not a zero-sum game, so you can produce something that will also benefit other people, but it will benefit yourself, and you should, you deserve to be rewarded. But also you have this freedom of giving all your money away. I mean, after you won all your money, who prevents you to go to a charity and give everything, right? Nobody does. So if you put principles and values, especially the belief in God, in the right way, you can overcome that natural Nash equilibrium that selfish capitalism would take you to. You can have happy capitalism where you compete, you produce, you earn, you get rewarded, and then you share. You help other people to enjoy the game as well. So, these are my thoughts. Sorry that this is getting too long. I hope that, if you don't care about what I'm saying, at least you're enjoying the places where I'm filming. This is an awesome place. So, hope to see you in the next one. Bye.